What's up guys, Thomas back here in the garage. And the last time you saw this car, 3 coats of clear was being applied to the roof. Since then, there's been a lot of questions and comments about the status and the outcome of this clear coat job. So today, we're gonna take a look at this and see the final results. Alright guys, before I show you the results, I'm actually going to wash the car since I'm going to be wet sanding it. That's the first step. You don't want to wet sand with dust and dirt particles on the paint. So we are going to wash the car quickly, get all the imperfections off of it, and I'll give you a closer look at what we're working with. Alright guys, let's get this car cleaned. Alright guys, I just finished washing the car. This will be your first time seeing the clear coat on the roof here. As I said before, the car doesn't have a really bad paint job, but the roof was oxidized pretty bad. But it is a lot better than what it used to be. So let's get a little bit closer here. You can see right here, that's where we had one problem spot. And you can see a little bit of color difference between where it used to be, the actual fade and clear coat, and the original color here. Another place would be right here in the back. And here's another problem spot. So the clear coat did fix it. It looks a little bit better, but you can see a little bit of color difference between this part and the original clear coat. So what I want you guys to notice here as well, I'll go on the other side to see it a little bit better. You can see some orange peel there. But one thing I want you to notice is the difference between this clear coat and this clear coat. It's not really visible because the sun isn't directly out right now. But where the new clear coat is, it's a lot better. A lot deeper color than this side here. So let's go along the back here to see the difference. Let's go on the other side, might be more visible. All right, so here, all here was a problem spot. So the two things that clear coat did was make that fade in color a little bit darker so it's less visible to the naked eye. But once you get closer to it, then you can see a little bit of color difference between where the paint was pretty good and where the clear coat was actually fading. Overall, it's not that bad. But yeah, I'm trying to just, it's really hard to see on camera, but you can see right here where it's the original clear coat. Although this is not bad at all, I just want to show you that between this versus this, it's a little bit darker over here, and it looks actually better. So it did do some justice to the actual existing clear coat that wasn't bad. Even the areas that were really damaged, it brought a little bit deeper color to it. Okay, here's the sun out now. How we get a better idea of what's going on. So everything from this little I guess, gasket or trim piece to the right was re-cleared in that video. I'll leave a link above or below to see that video, but doesn't look too bad. My main focus here is to get the orange peel out through wet sanding. For the most part, like I said, this wasn't a bad project by any means. All right, so I'm gonna pull the car in the garage and we can get this process started. Okay, so before we begin, let's take a look at some of the products that we need to get this job done today. First here, we have our sandpaper. This was for $3 or $4, depending on the price. I got this from Harbor Freight. And this is a kit. It comes with 4 different grits or coarseness of sandpaper. So since today we're just removing the orange peel in our clear coat, I'll be using 1,000 grit and 1,200 grit. If you have really severe orange peel, you can go a little bit more coarse, maybe 800 grit. This doesn't have 800 grit. I think 500 is a little bit too aggressive for the imperfections in the paint today, so I'll be using 1,000 and 1,200. With that said, I was going to use my hand just to smooth the clear coat out to remove the imperfections, but on second thought, I got a sanding block. This is not really required, but it provides a nice, smooth, level surface. You can also use this as well for curved surfaces, and it protects your fingers. This can also be used as well, same process, but I think I'll be using the sanding block. Because we are wet sanding, you also need a bottle to keep the surface and your sandpaper lubricated or wet at all times, hence the reason wet sanding. I also got this bucket from the dollar store, and this was my initial goal, to use this bucket with the chamois and just keep the surface very wet. But this might be even a better idea, to use a squirt bottle or a spray bottle with water. I have a mask here just in case I need it. It shouldn't be too dusty outside, so a dust mask may not be required. We talked about the bucket already. Then we have the buffer here, or the dual action buffer / sander. I have 2 pads here. They are different makes and model. It really doesn't matter which one you have, but as long as you have a polishing and a finishing detail pad, that's what I'll be using. Although they're the same color, they're not the same texture. If you have really aggressive or bad orange peel, you might want to get a cutting pad that's more aggressive, then go to the polishing pad, and then a detail / finishing pad. I also have a microfiber polish towel. I'll be using this at the end to remove all the wax or polish from the paint and to see the finished product. So here are all the tools you need. For the most part, the most important thing that you need is the sandpaper. Make sure you have the right grit. Make sure it's not too coarse and you have a smooth one. So 1,200 is pretty smooth. As I said, you can use your hand. I probably won't recommend it, but I have a sanding block here for that. Make sure your surface is always wet and lubricated. And I think that's it. After that, you want to make the surface as smooth as possible. You can use your hand, elbow grease if you want to, but I'll be using the actual DA polisher. So overall, a pretty cheap and simple job. All right, I'm gonna have my sandpaper soaked in water for between 10 and 20 minutes. This is the sandpaper that I have. I'm gonna use the 1,000 grit and the 1,200 grit today. Okay, so I have my sanding block here. I also have my sandpaper attached to my sanding block. I had the sandpaper soaking in my bucket for at least 10 to 15 minutes. And I also have my bottle of water here to lubricate the surface here. So my plan here is to go back and forward along the parts that I clear coated. Even some areas where it doesn't need any sanding, I'll still do some areas there. I would advise if you are gonna do some sanding, wet sanding, that you mask off or protect some of the surfaces that you don't want to be scuffed or sand. In this case, I have only the sunroof, so that's not really a big problem. I'm not gonna go onto the glass. And I also have this plastic area right here, which I plan not to get any closer to, so I should be fine. But if you were gonna sand another surface close to this or an adjacent piece, like from, I don't know, around here, I would probably tape that off. And what you wanna do here is to lubricate the surface. I'll also wet the actual sandpaper so that they're both lubricated. And what you wanna do is apply gentle pressure, and you'll see the difference in color or the difference in the color of the water. Once you start to sand, you'll see a milky color, and that's when you know you're actually removing some layers of the clear coat. So let's do it. Okay, let's start this. It's gonna be interesting. I have this light right here, so that's gonna give me a good indication of when I see some clear coat being removed. Very generous with the water. I just washed the car, but it doesn't really matter because after I'm finished here, I'm gonna wash it again. So, all right, let's go. All right, I can start seeing some milky color here, and that just means that some of the top clear coat is coming off, which is what I want. Either that or the sandpaper is coming off. I'm gonna keep going with the forward to back motion here. All right, I can still see some milky color here. And I don't know, I'm not gonna go too deep because I will be using the 1200 grit eventually. All right, that looks a little bit better already, honestly. Sounds kind of weird, but yeah, it's taken some of the clear coat off already. Now, I'm sure once this dries, it's not gonna look pretty because it may look a little hazy, but right now, I don't see much orange peel. All right, well, this wasn't one of the worst areas, but that surely helped. All right, I'm gonna keep going and try to get as far as I can reach. Maybe step back and do this side right here as far as I can reach and start that process again. And you can clearly see it right now. There's some white right here, and that's the clear coat I took off. That's actually drying. So there is some clear coat being removed, and that's fine. I'm using 1000 grit for right now. Once I'm satisfied with the product, I will rinse it, dry it, and then use the 1200 grit. Let us do it. All right, let's do it. Finished the first pass with the 1000 grit sandpaper. I was using medium or light to medium pressure along the way. This works pretty well. You can still see some white residue on the car. So Some places I did use my finger to feel the difference, and you can notice the difference here. So I am gonna rinse the car right now with clean water and then dry it off. I'm expecting the surface to be white and milky because of all the micro scratches in there. And then I think I'll start with the 1200 grit sandpaper. All right, time to dry this and see how it looks. All right, so the surface is pretty rough now. Usually the chamois is just gliding over the surface, but it's not right now, which makes sense. All right. Yep. All right, I'll let that dry for a couple of minutes. Then, actually I don't have to let it dry because we are gonna wet sand with the 1200 grit. I can already see right here some places that I missed, which is pretty cool. I now have the sanding block loaded with 1200 grit sandpaper, so a little bit smoother. The first pass was pretty good. There are some spots that still need some sanding here. I can still see some orange peel. Besides that, I think I am going to go a little bit horizontal on some areas over here. I can't get it when I'm going vertical. This is gonna be a pass with the 1200 grit. If I find something smoother as well, this is not too bad, it's pretty smooth. If I can find something smoother, maybe 2000 grit later, I might do that before I start to buff and polish it. But for right now, I'm gonna use the 1200 and then try to start polishing the whole roof and see how it looks. So I think this is the area that needs some addressing right here. The color's pretty good, and but there's some orange peel, so let's see if we can get that out with the smoother sandpaper. So I'm gonna go horizontal here. Still using light to medium pressure. I'm just letting the sandpaper do its work, and I can see that it's actually working. So you want to be very cautious with the edges right here so that you don't burn into it very easily, because it's the curvature, the contour of it. Because this is a flat surface and this is curved, you could burn to it easily. So I'm pretty much staying off the corners. For the most part, these edges right here didn't have any orange peel, so I'll be fine not touching that part. So, all right, let's go for it. Not bad. Probably wish I had something smoother. I might go to the store and get maybe 2000 grit. For right now, this is working pretty well though. And hopefully the polish and buffer can get all this stuff out. I'm actually pretty happy with the result thus far. Let's go to the other side and get that side going. So I just finished my first pass with the 1200 grit sandpaper. That might actually be my first and last pass. I feel pretty confident or comfortable with the result of this sandpaper, the 1200 grit. It did require a lot more water. I'm actually almost emptying the water bottle here, which is fine. I can get some more water, but it did require a lot of water to have a smooth pass on the surface, which is fine. I think we should be good as far as orange peel is concerned. There might be a little bit remaining. I can't see any right now with the water still on the car, but I think whatever orange peel is left or remaining should come off with the buffer / polisher. Yeah, this thing requires a lot of water, which is cool. And this block is actually weighted, so I don't really need a lot of pressure on it. So I found that it's working pretty well with a lot of water on there and just smooth, easy passes. I'm gonna rinse and clean the surface again. And I think that should be it. I don't know if I wanna go get the 2000 grit sandpaper. I think this should be good enough. Okay, I have a bucket of clean water here. I'm gonna try to clean this. I'll probably clean it twice, just because I wanna make sure this surface is extremely clean when I start doing the polishing. I think it's clean. All right. Just make sure that your surface is completely dry, just like when we did the clear coat. You don't want to start buffing or using the polish in I'll be using the DA sander, DA polisher, and you don't want any water spots on there. It looks pretty dry. I'll leave it here for a couple of minutes, let the air get to it, and that should remove more moisture. A little bit of orange peel right here. I don't know if I want to go deeper into it. I could sand right here some more. I think I will. Right here. And maybe right there as well. Okay, so I'm back here. I said I was gonna clean this surface and call it a day, but this area is good. I still see a little bit of peel right here on the corner, so I'm still using the 1200 grit, so not too coarse. It's not the smoothest thing either, but... And let's see if I can tackle this one right here. Focus right here. All right, that should do it. That should be fine, hopefully. I'm happy with that. Looks a little bit better. I don't feel comfortable going any deeper than that. I am gonna let that dry for just 5 minutes. And while that's happening, I'm gonna go get the polisher and maybe talk a little bit about that and what my intentions are for that.